Okay, welcome back to Forgiveness, Faith, and Trust. All right. So this video may be just maybe a little lengthy, and it may be a little tough for me to get through, but I know if God said this is number 3, then it has to be number 3. All right. So when I was younger, maybe about 7, 8, 9, 10, somewhere in that age range, I remember I used to want to go with my mom all the time. She used to leave me at home with my grandmother. And it used to be me and my grandmother. We were like this. We rocked it out. So I used to want to go with my mom all the time. Well, this one particular day, my dad said that he was coming by. And so I wanted to go with my mom, but I also wanted to stay home and see him. Well, I was like, well, you could just stay here. And I was like, well, yeah, I think I'm going to stay here. And the reason why I stayed is because I had not seen this man in I don't know how long. Like, it was to be a treat for him to come by, right? So I woke up that morning. I got my clothes on. Just ready for the day, right? So my grandmother and I used to drink coffee in the morning. Sometimes she would fix grits and do all of this stuff for me or for us. And so this particular morning, she had cooked breakfast as usual. It was a Saturday. She had cooked breakfast as usual. She had made her coffee, made me a little coffee. I was getting dressed. I had finally gotten dressed, got myself together. It was around about, it was later morning, 10:30, 11 o'clock, like that. So, I'm sitting there waiting, and he had told my mom, like, I'm going to come and pick her up. I'll come and get her early. Well, 11:30 rolled by, 12:30 rolled by. I'm fresh, clean. 1 o'clock rolled by, 2 o'clock rolled by, 3 o'clock rolled by. Oh, at 3 o'clock, I was like, well, maybe he had something else to do, but okay, he's coming. So I remember pulling the chair out of the kitchen and putting the chair, like my grandmother had a screen door and she had the front door. So I opened the front door all the way up. The front door stayed open all morning, all up until about 3 o'clock. And at that time, I took a chair, put it in front of the screen door, and I sat in the chair with the door wide open in front of the screen door for about 2 hours. And so, long amount of time it went by, probably those 2 hours, and I saw my grandmother in the kitchen. As she would normally do, she would sit at the kitchen table. And I just saw the tears coming down her eyes. I was like, oh, grandmother, what's wrong? Grandma, what's wrong? Oh, nothing, baby. I'm all right. So this is not, I think it was probably daylight savings time because it was still in the evening time when he finally decided to pull up around about 6:30, right? In my mind, as soon as I saw his green pickup truck pull in the yard, I'm like, I'm staying at home. I already know he ain't coming to get me. I'm not going with him. So that is already processed in my mind. Come in the door. He speaks to my grandmother. Well, before he comes in the door, I'm thinking it's just him. So he gets out, and then the other door opens, the passenger door opens. I'm like, who is this kid? What are you doing with my daddy? Right? So at that point, I realized, like, number one, I'm not his only kid. Number two, he spent a lot of time with this kid. Like, he's, you know, they've been together all day. And here I am sitting in the... Here I am sitting in a chair in front of the screen door, waiting. So they come inside immediately. I could feel the heat rising from the sole of my feet all the way to the top of my head. And I'm ticked. I'm pissed. I'm boiling hot. I'm mad. I done wasted my nice clothes. I done put on my good clothes to sit in the house and just sit and wait. So he comes in, the little boy comes in, he introduced the little boy as his son. My grandmother says hi, you know, she has this, my grandmother was loving, like she was just a loving person. So, you know, she, oh, come on, she wiped the disappointment off of her face and welcomed them in. Because I know she was thinking the same thing I was thinking. I ain't going. So he came in and, yeah, he introduces himself. And so he's like, hey, Kimberly, how are you? I'm like, I'm fine. I'm good. So I get all this together, and then he was like, well, we're about to go. And as I'm not going. I'm just not going. I wasn't going. So, all right, bye. So they get in this green pickup truck. I watch them till they get to the stop sign. They make a left and turn out a McMahon circle. And I closed the door. And I went and laid down on the sofa and finished watching TV. All this time has went by. Like, I'm 44 now. And it took me a while to understand that adults don't make all the best decisions, because I'm one now and I don't make all the best decisions when it comes to my children. Right? So I had to go back and I had to change my perspective on how I viewed that particular day. And not just that day, like my childhood growing up. I had to go back and reassess how I grew up. I had to go back and reassess and take evaluation of everything that happened in my childhood. And I had to go back, and then that's why the beginning of this channel is called Forgiveness, because I had to go back and I had to forgive all of the adults, or I thought I did. Then I had to forgive myself for the perception that I had. Then I had to forgive. It was just a whole bunch of forgiveness. If you're not understanding what I'm saying, it was just a whole bunch of forgiveness and a whole lot of perspective changing. I had to go back and change my perspective and my outlook on my childhood in order to get to the point where now I am in this space and I can talk to someone else about it and say, hey, go back and look at it a different way. Hey, go take a fresh inventory or a new inventory with an older set of eyes. I had to do that. It took me a while. It took me a minute. It took me a while. Now, there's another part to this particular story as to why I believe, number one, he was flaky with me. Number two, why he formed a relationship, a bond with the other child, and then I was just like left out. Like, there's another part to this story. So if you are having difficulty with parts of your childhood, I would encourage you to take a different look with a new set of eyes, with a mature set of eyes, and just go back in time. Take yourself back to that little girl or that little boy and say, what about this? Or what about the situation at the time produced that outcome? And whatever outcome it was, for me, it was the outcome of saying, hey, this person don't want to be bothered with me. And so I carried that for a while. Like I carried that from that particular age I was all the way until I was 18. And something happened when I was 18. I'm going to tell that story later. That's a different story. But I was put in that particular position through that amount of time with that perspective. And I had to hold on to that and know about that and deal with that at that age with that set of information. And then I had to come back in my adult years and say, hey, now go back and look at that. Go back and think about that. Go back and, with all of the information you have now, with all of the knowledge you have now, with all of the points in between, like, go back and look at that. So if you're dealing with some things, some trauma that happened to you when you were a child, when you were a kid, when you were young, I'll advise you to take a different look at it. Get a different perspective. And then you'll be able to go and forgive some people for their actions then. And it'll help you with your trust going forward. Your trust in those situations, your trust in the people, how you interact with your own kids, how you give them. Because one thing I decided to do was to give my kids all of the information they needed. You will start with all of the freshes. No more, I'm an adult, you a kid, you don't deserve this information. They do. Because I don't want my kids to get into a situation where they have to become 40 and 45 and trying to go back and piece together things and sprinkle this here and sprinkle this there. Let's have full understanding. It says, in all thine getting, get understanding. So I challenge you to get all the understanding you have or can get, and then go back and look at your childhood, or look at the things that traumatized you as a child. Or if they are traumatized, just go back with a older, mature, fresh set of eyes, fresh set of perspectives, and go and heal yourself, so that your latter won't be like your former, so that you can move different going forward than you've been moving. I pray this blesses you.